Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps health-conscious people like runners, cyclists, weightlifters, and even vegetarians get lower rates on health insurance. You know, if you listen to this podcast, you probably are healthier than your average person. So why should you pay the same amount as everyone else for health insurance? 56% of Health IQ customers can save between 4 and 33% on their life insurance. And Health IQ can do this because they use science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for health-conscious people. It's an amazing service. And in fact, they are actually the fastest growing life insurance company with over $5 billion in coverage. So to check them out and to see if you qualify, go ahead and get your free quote today at healthiq.com/superhuman, or just mention the promo code superhuman when you talk to a Health IQ agent. This episode is brought to you by Organifi. You guys, one of the only things that every nutritional expert that we've had on the show seems to actually agree on is that we all need to eat more vegetables, eat more greens, eat organic, cut out all the processed junk. Well, who has the time, right? Who has the time to go out, do the shopping, make the salads, make the juices, make the smoothies? And that's what I love so much about Organifi. Their product is an all-organic green juice. It has all of the nutrients that you need. It tastes absolutely amazing, and it's made by wonderful people who I consider to be personal friends. And as listeners of this show, you guys can actually save 20% on your first order. And all you have to do is go to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com and use the coupon code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. Greetings, Super Friends, and welcome to this week's episode. You guys, today we are joined by Joshua Perry. You may know him from the world of extreme sports. He is an extreme athlete, a BMX biker, but that's just the beginning of his story. You see, Josh has survived multiple brain tumors. He went through an unbelievable journey to get healthy and get well, including massive surgery, including cutting edge new treatment technology. And he survived through it all. And he's living with this condition and has so much to share. You guys, we talked about fear. We talked about life purpose and mission. And we talked about the journey that followed this horrifying experience for him and the beauty that came out of it. Josh today is an expert in the nutrition field as well as a BMX athlete. He has written and been featured in more publications than I care to list, but to name a few, they're Men's Health, GQ, US News, LiveStrong, People Magazine, ESPN, and on and on and on and on. And he has launched the dailybrainstorms.com blog where he shares his thoughts and ideas with the world. Absolutely incredible interview. I tried to go as deep as I could and really get into some of the emotions, the fears, and also the tools that Josh went through and developed so that I could really give you guys some practical takeaways that will help you overcome fear in your own lives and face the big, scary what ifs. I really enjoyed the episode, and I'm quite sure you guys will as well. So let me introduce you guys to my new super friend, Josh Perry. Mr. Joshua Perry, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
An absolute pleasure. You know, it's not very often that I get to have an extreme sports athlete on the show. We get a lot of nutrition people and a lot of meditation people. You're one of maybe 10 extreme athletes that we've had on the show. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm honored. And actually, I'm really into nutrition and meditation and everything to do with holistic health too.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit, Josh, about who you are and what you do.
So I'm a professional BMX athlete, and I'm also a certified holistic health coach. And I use my sport to obviously pursue my dream. But along the way, I've had some experiences that have given me some great perspective on life and have led me to my new passions of health, which is to me encompasses the body and the mind. So that being said, I'm health coaching today to work with clients to share those passions. And along the way, everything involving who I am, just inspire people to make healthy changes and live their dreams.
Love it. I love it. Joshua, I feel like it's probably cliche with all the interviews that you do, but I feel like it's a huge point in your journey, which is you struggled with a very serious illness for quite some time. In fact, more than once. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So to be clear, I still live with that disease, and I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, it's something that changed my life 180 degrees and for the better. A lot of people say it's going to be the worst thing that ever happened to you. And to me, there is no good or bad. It's all perspective and what you take from it. So to me, it's been the best thing that ever happened to me because it's led me to what I'm passionate about today and helping others. But yeah, so from the beginning, I moved, I was 17 years old. I don't recommend this, but I dropped out of high school to pursue this dream and to train with the best. And that was in Greenville, North Carolina. That's where Dave Mira and Ryan Nyquist were. And it's where they had their private training facilities. And I was competing all around the world and needed to be at the best place to train at that level. And so my parents supported me. I moved 13 hours south from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, northeast United States, to down in the southeast to North Carolina, Greenville. And I'd been doing well. I've been making a name for myself in the sport, acquiring sponsors, putting out videos, doing interviews, and traveling and just experiencing so much. And 2009, I rode X Games for the first time and just was living the dream, And then came March of 2010. It was just a typical training session and was learning a new trick in a foam pit. It's kind of what we stole from gymnastics, but it's a safe way for us to learn tricks and, practice them. And whether it's a new trick or an old trick, just to keep it, keep our mental state in the game. Mm-hmm. And learned a new trick and just did it like 10 times perfect in the foam pit. Felt super confident. Went and tried it on the real ramp. And now a little insert here is we have what's called a resi ramp. It's in between a foam pit and a real ramp, and it's a padded landing. So similar to gymnastics, but it's pretty much a ramp with about a foot of foam and then a very thin piece of plastic. So that way we don't sink into the foam and we can ride away. But we try our tricks there. Didn't have it at the time, so I went straight to the wood. A little nervous, so I overcompensated the rotation. The easiest way to explain this trick is I was going up a quarter pipe. It was a 6-foot tall ramp. And I was doing a backflip as well as spinning around 180 degrees, which is called a flare.
Wow.
Now, while you're upside down, I was jumping off the back end of my bike, still hanging onto the bars, and kicking the back end around, which we call a tail whip. So if you can picture this, going up a ramp, flipping, spinning 180 degrees while kicking the back end of my bike around. And it's pretty complex, but I overcompensated the whole rotation in general because I was nervous of landing under-rotated. And what happened was when I got back on the bike and landed, I over-rotated to my shoulder and whiplashed my head, hit my head, and got a little knocked out. Wow. So, yeah. And mind you, this is 6-foot ramp, and I'm about 4 to 6 feet above it on top of my bike. So I'm anywhere from 10 to 12 feet, and I came down to the ground. And
unconscious.
Yeah, it wasn't too long, I mean, there's no good way to say that, but I was knocked out just for a brief second, but then I knew what was going on and where I was and, decided to stop riding for the rest of the day and went home. And then the next day I went to the doctors to get checked out and they requested an MRI. Mm-hmm. But a year prior to that, a little background story, I'd been going in for headaches, complaining of headaches, migraines to the point where I was throwing up, blurred vision. My friends had to drive me to urgent care or the ER. And they kept saying, you don't need a scan. You're one of those people that have headaches. Here's some pain meds, whether it was Vicodin, Percocets, whatever. Go home and try them out. Come back if you need more. Those don't do well with me. My stomach doesn't do well with them at all. And the very last time I went in, it was so severe. I was, throwing up. I don't even know how to explain the level of the headache I had. I took the Percocets on the way home, but that was the first and only time I've ever projectile vomited in my life. Pretty insane experience. So there's a little background story. So moving forward to March of 2010, I hit my head. Then that required an MRI. Well, that MRI and actually that crash that day saved my life because when the doctor came back in, he told me, no swelling, no bleeding of the brain. So, you suffered a mild concussion, but your brain has something in there that shouldn't be there. It's a large mass. To be exact, it was 8 centimeters long by 4 centimeters wide and 2 deep. It's a brain tumor. We don't know if it's benign or cancerous. That'll, require a biopsy, but you don't have much time to live with the size of this and where it's pushing onto your optic nerve, which was leading me to go blind. And so if you want a chance at living, you got to get this thing taken out. And that was the start of everything.
What was the first thing that went through your mind when he said that to you?
Instantly, I'm dead. I have cancer. I have a brain tumor. I'm dead. That was the initial thought.
Wow. And he didn't know at that point if this was a cancerous mass or not.
No, that required a biopsy. So he said once they do the surgery, they'll test it, send it out to get tested, and then we'll know for sure.
Incredible. And so what happened next?
So I went to the local neurologist, and he checked out my MRI and did some other tests and did some research on a neurosurgeon and came across one of the top in the world. Luckily, an hour and a half west of where I was living, located in Durham at Duke University, Dr. Alan Friedman. And went and had a consultation with him, and he told me, we don't have much time. You're very, very fortunate that you crashed this day, hit your head. Obviously, I had a helmet on, but that crash saved your life, because if you kept going the route that they were suggesting and not doing anything about it, not knowing, and you might have not woken up one day, probably a month or two. So we need to get you in. We need to get you in as soon as possible, and we need to get this taken out. And he actually moved 2 of his patients from his schedule to get me in quick enough to be able to get it out. And it was said to be a 4.5-hour surgery, but it ended up taking 6 because then they ended up finding out it was located on a main artery as well. And they couldn't risk hitting that for various reasons. They're 2 pages long, but stroke, paralysis, and death were among the top.
Josh, I want to ask you, because I think what's so interesting about your story, there's many interesting things, but one of them is that in your profession, you deal with fear for a living. You do stunts that would make most people crap their pants. And so I want to ask you, going into that surgery, knowing that they're going to open up your head and operate on your brain, were the tools that you discovered as a BMX athlete, were they helpful in facing this kind of fear?
100%. Yeah. I say this a lot, like we as BMX athletes, or, kind of any athlete in general, you're willing to risk failure more times in a day than most people are willing to in a lifetime. And with that failure or risk of failure comes injury risk. And with BMX especially, you learn at a young age to, when you fall down, you get up and try again. The only thing that's limiting you to your next success is fear and the ability to get up and try again. So once you have a goal of a trick in mind, which I didn't know at the time, I was setting goals. I was learning how to set goals at a very young age and block out fear. Now I'm very aware of it, but yeah, with BMX, like you have these tricks you want to learn, and it requires, practice, time, patience, and getting up when you fall down and learning how to assess fear. And now I'm sharing that with the younger generation to be more conscious of it, but like, where's that fear coming from? And is it real? Is it someone else's? Is it based on a past or a future experience that hasn't happened? But 100%, man, those skills along the way allowed me to kind of be in a state of, fear went out the window when I was told, like, you have no other options besides surgery to get this taken out. And it became a moment in my life where I, learned that fear was just a thought. And actually the first tattoo I ever got says fear is just a thought, but thoughts can be changed. And I believe that 100%, we dictate how fear plays a role in our life, whether, we want it to hinder us or we want it to fuel us.
Elaborate on that. I mean, I'm dying to know what happens in that moment, when you're looking down a ramp that terrifies you, or when you're looking up an oxygen mask that's about to put you under for surgery. What's the last thing that goes through your head before you go, okay, I'm ready?
You assess what you want. What is the outcome that you want? And that's the biggest thing that I want people to be conscious of that helped me the most was, these goals are great and all, but it's like, what is the desired outcome? Fear is so easy to allow you to think of what you don't want, to be fearful of what you don't want. And we as a society tend to make that our prioritization and our focus. So when you have a situation that's setting fear to be present, you need to assess, well, what is the outcome you want? Do you want to land that trick? Do you want to make that team that you're trying out for? Do you want to get that job? Do you want to pass that test? Do you want to ask that person out? Like whatever that fearful moment is arising, just my biggest thing was focusing on what the desired outcome. And in my case, going in for surgery, life or death surgery, it was my focus wasn't even living. It was beyond that. It was riding my bike again. At that time, I was 21 and I had worked, probably 7 or 8 years to get to that point of, blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifices. And I was like, I'm not going to let this, end that for me. I'm at the beginning of my professional career, living in a town that my idols and mentors live in, and I'm friends with them and competitors with them. I wasn't even thinking about life. I was just thinking about riding, what I wanted to do. And, I was visualizing that outcome, and I was just visualizing getting past this. And this is just another challenge.
It's incredible. So you go through the surgery. Obviously it was a success because you're here speaking to me today, but it wasn't that simple. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So surprisingly, it's very ignorant to it at the time, but I was like, man, I'm out for a year of recovery. If, this goes well, I'm out a year, 4 weeks for the skull to fuse back together. So it was a very pleasant surprise. Went in for that 4-week checkup and MRI, everything checked out. Took another week just to kind of rest a little bit more and ease back into it. And 5 weeks after surgery, I was, back on my bike, helmet, pads, cruising around, no tricks for the first week or two, just, feeling the ramps, feeling the motions again. Had to learn, pretty much balance and air awareness kind of all over. But then it was about 10 to 12 weeks. I want to say 11 weeks. I was in England competing again and made top 10, my first contest back. And it was pretty surreal.
Totally. Just to think that, so much of what you do requires so much skill and so much dexterity. I think it's a huge testament to the skill of these surgeons that they were able to completely not alter the function of your brain in taking out, this huge mass.
Yeah. Just last year, I saw my doctor or my surgeon after about 5 or 6 years. And, he remembered, brain surgeons are insane. He remembered everything to the T, and was talking about how he had a new resident in that was egging him on to hurry up. And he was like, no, if we mess up any of these motor skills or that optic nerve, or, we hit the artery, at the worst case scenario, his career is done. And he told him what I do. And I showed him a video. I was like, man, thanks to you, I'm back better than I was before. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Incredible. And now you mentioned something very important, which is you're still living under this condition. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So moving forward to 2012, a routine scan in September of 2012 revealed 2 small masses that were said to be recurring from the original tumor. And they were about the size of a blueberry, the other one a little bit smaller. And they said that was a complication because of the artery, the tumor location on that artery, that they couldn't risk getting 100% of the cells because of, hitting that artery. So they said that's pretty much what they were coming back from, but to get radiation. And at the time, very ignorant to all these terms. And that scared me so much. And I was just like, radiation doesn't sound good. It just sounds like another mess. And did some Googling and came across a technology called gamma knife radio treatment. And, I looked at the ins and the outs of that. It's an outpatient procedure, non-invasive. And the best way I can put it, it's like an MRI, but without the sound, without the annoyance of things. You go in and out, a couple of times, depending on what they're doing for you specifically, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes each in and out. And, you don't feel anything. It's painless. And I drove 12 hours home. I actually had the procedure at Tufts Medical Center in Boston. I drove 12 hours back that morning. And it was crazy because unlike traditional radiation, they can pinpoint a location to where they want to treat via computer, and they use 180 degrees of lower beams of radiation to where they use the computer to map it out, and then when that area they want to treat, all the beams meet, it does its job without damaging surrounding tissue. And if you need to treat the same similar area later on, you can. And it just sounded so great. And because of that treatment, I didn't have to have my skull cut open again, exposed to all the physical and mental toxins of stress and chemicals. And for the next couple of years, they actually shrunk, and then they stabilized as of this year. But another MRI this past February showed those were shrunk and then stabilized, which is, the best case scenario. They shrunk before they stabilized. Majority of people, they just stabilize and then they go on living a perfectly healthy and happy life. But this scan showed that they're stable. We're all good to go. But on the other side of the brain, 2 other smaller masses popped up. And they're suggesting I have what's called NF2, or neurofibromatosis, a genetic disorder that creates brain and spinal brain tumors, and specifically meningioma tumors, which are the ones I have. Majority of them are benign, similar to mine. or the ones that I live with. But the only way to know if I had that genetic disorder is a biopsy, which I'm the healthiest, happiest, strongest I've ever been in life. And I don't really feel that I need to have my skull cut open to figure out if I have something or not. We're actually getting an MRI next week. So next Friday, so a week and a day from today. And we're going to assess, what the progress with them has been. And if I'm going to have Gamma Knife again, or if we're just going to monitor them for the next couple of years if they haven't progressed. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I have to ask, how do you live with this knowledge every single day? How do you live in peace?
So it came to a point where I just kind of forgot about it because, like I said before, it's just, a thought. We have these thoughts in everyday experiences, whether they're severe or petty, that dictate how we move through life. And I made a commitment the second time. The second time I was shattered just almost about the same as the first time. I was actually in India doing demos, and I was taking a train back to the airport by myself when, after I found out the news, and I just, was shattered. But then that was one of the times where I just was like, no, not going to let this dictate my life. And I'm going to use this as motivation to do what I love. And I'm going to figure out, I went from a victim mentality to a survivor mentality then and there. Wasn't very aware of it, but like now looking back, that shifted. And I was like, I'm going to beat this and I'm going to do what I love and I'm going to do something with this to help people. And that's when my perspective on life changed once again of what I wanted to do and, what I wanted to accomplish in my life and leave behind. And, moving forward, the third time, it was funny because I was just like, oh, great, cool. What do I do with this? How do I spin this to better my life and others around me? How do I make this impactful rather than detrimental, And right then and there, the next day, actually, Aaron Cook from Athlete Recovery Fund, who helped me back in 2010, their nonprofit helping action sports athlete medical care, hit me up and he was like, hey man, we don't have much on the schedule. We know you're trying to start, your Josh Perry Foundation and, it takes a little bit of time and money to get to that, that IRS level of tax exempt and all that. But we want to let you know we've supported you before. We found out the news. We're here to support you again. So whatever you need or you want to do with your foundation, your charity events, like let us know. And so that's how that partnership worked. And getting back to your original question, how I move forward every day, it's just, like I said before, fear is just a thought and you can change those thoughts. So it comes down to the desired outcome you want in your life ultimately and not to let fear dictate that. And I'm at the point now where I forget sometimes, like, man, like I don't even think about it every day. I just think about what I want to do, what I want to accomplish and what it takes, whether it's nutrition, it's mindfulness, it's meditation, it's fitness, like all these different things. What do I want my life to look like? How do I want it to be? Because ultimately that's what's going to dictate that. If I let fear get into the place of, taking over of all that, then my life's going to go the opposite way. So it just comes down to a choice. And then that led into, I hardly even think about it. Or if I do, it serves no purpose. It's just information.
Incredible. I'm so inspired and so moved just by your tenacity and also by your ability and discipline to maintain this mindset. And it sounds, as you said early on, that this changed your life for the better. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, and just to, make it clear, it's not easy. It's easier now, but, we're 7.5 years from when I, got diagnosed and had my surgery. And it was the first 2 years where a lot of the victim state, like, why me? Like, what did I do? I'm not a bad person. And, things like that. And then, getting back to being comfortable and confident in what I do on and off the bike. So I want people to know, like, it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice. But once you dedicate your life to the desired outcome you want and the things you want to do and what it's going to take to get there, and you practice them regularly and don't make it right or wrong if you mess up, just get back on track, or it becomes easier. But it's a skill and it takes a lot of practice. And you're not going to get it overnight. Nothing that you want is going to happen overnight. And when people say they have overnight successes, there's a lot of background that goes into that.
Totally.
But it's just like, yeah, it's practice. So
totally.
Yeah. And then now, like looking back, it changed my perspective because one, I was super ungrateful for life. I didn't even know it, but I was just like, I don't have this, they have that, I should have this and all these things. And I want that. But I wasn't grateful for the moment. I wasn't grateful to even have that thought, to be, alive, to be a human being rather than like a tree, I wasn't grateful for what I had, yet I had the audacity to want more. And, I think that was the biggest thing was just, wow, I'm alive, I am living my dream, like I'm doing something not many people can say they've accomplished or, lived for longer than just a short period of time. Like I'm in that. And so I think gratitude was one of the main perspectives. And then just like committing to like, all right, I don't want to let fear stop me. I don't want to have any regrets. I want to give everything 100%, and then comes health, like what was I eating or not eating? What was I exercising or not exercising, or how, or, what was my lifestyle like? Was I, at the time I was 21, 22, still 23, the first and second time I was diagnosed. And I was living in, Greenville, North Carolina, East Carolina University, party town, one of the top 10 party towns in America. And I got sucked into that professional, action sports athlete, college town lifestyle. I saw the older dudes I looked up to kind of doing it. And, we would, wake up later in the day, we'd ride all day, and then we'd go out at night and we would, do our thing. And that was, like when I say my perspective changed, I was like, all right, that's pretty toxic. Not to mention that drinking alcohol is toxic, eating this, crap processed food and food like products. That's not even really food. Like, wow. And what really set that off was a simple documentary, Food Matters, on Netflix. End of 2010 and 2011, I watched that. And that's when it all just shifted. I was like, man, I don't want this to come back. I could be doing so much to prevent it. And, moving forward now, I've learned so much, about gene expression, epigenetics, and all this other stuff. At the time, I was just like, all right, I need to make some changes. But I made some changes, but they weren't, too valuable, or not valuable. Like they weren't like severe changes. They're just small. I was still drinking though. I was still eating fast food every now and then and soda. But the second time, that's when it kicked in. And I was like, all right, this is my wake up call. Like, Josh, get your shit together. Like you almost died once. You got this, this thing coming back. Like, what are you doing? And then there it just took off, and I, committed 100%, and just even today still continue to learn and practice and try new things.
Brilliant. Tell me about your journey to become a certified nutritionist. When did that fit in, and what were some of the surprising takeaways that you had?
So that started end of 2013, and that came about from the anxiety of learning nutrition. Like nutrition is one of those sciences that can prove something correct or false, but there's so much context that goes into that, like one thing could be good for a person, one thing could be bad for a person. But there's like, what source are you looking at? How is it manufactured? What did the animal eat that you ate? Like all these things. What is your biochemistry? And one of the biggest things I learned in my health coaching schooling or education was bio-individuality, meaning everyone's biology, life internally, externally is all different. So foods and exercise and stressors and things are going to interact with them differently than everyone else. So that's why you have so many diets that work, and so many people, respond differently to all of them. But it really came from the anxiety. I was just researching all over the place, and I was just like, this is saying this is good. This says that this is bad. I should be vegan. I should be paleo. I should cook my food. I should eat it raw. I should not eat at all. Like, what do I do? And just one day I came across a school in New York called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And it's a online based, or if you live in New York, you can go there. But they had so much interest from around the world for 10 years or so that they made it an online course. And my goal with that was, primarily, how do I help myself be healthy? How do I prevent brain tumors from coming back? How do I prevent injuries, illness, all these things? How do I clear up the anxiety of learning? And then, a small portion was I was becoming very public about sharing my findings. And I was like, all right, well, maybe this will help me figure out how to, share with people, maybe make a business out of it, when I'm done riding. Ironically enough, I'm doing that now while still riding. But that's kind of what kicked it off, was just being stressed out of the information I was learning and how to apply it to my life.
So what's your diet look like today?
So today, my diet looks so much different. I can't believe I didn't get diabetes. I mean, I can say that, or I got brain tumors instead, whatever you want to say. But I was eating so much sugar back then, like insane. So today, I don't do that. I don't drink alcohol. If I do, it's just, some wine, very occasionally. At the time too, I did get introduced to craft beer and enjoying the taste of them and learning about them. But I don't do that too much anymore either. Like maybe a couple times a year. But that being said, it's pretty much just sugar free, unless I have, indulgence once in a while, but it's be some quality foods, or it's fruit here and there. Gluten free, lots of water, no alcohol. I started drinking like organic coffee, all the ins and the outs of the health benefits from that. restrict caffeine till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I have coffee or tea that's caffeinated, it's no longer after 2 p.m. High quality, unrefined fats. So none of the, crap processed vegetable oils, and lots of avocado and olive oils, coconut oil, grass-fed butter. Limited my protein intake to a good amount to my lean body mass and needs of an athlete, not overindulging in meats. And if I do, or when I do consume meat, it's grass-fed, local if possible, which Whole Foods makes that great, especially living in North Carolina. Wild-caught fish, no hormones, antibiotics, added chicken, and then a ton of green vegetables and low-starchy vegetables, which was a big changer for me from back in how I used to eat. But I pretty much just eat real food, man. Add a little bit of real pink sea salt or Redmond's real salt to my food. Lots of water. Don't consume toxins. And when I say all this, I live by what I call a 95 or 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, which is every time I go shopping, I do this. And I save that 10% of the year, whatever day that it works out to be, just to enjoy myself. And, with that being said, when I have like a pastry, for example, I get like a locally product from, a gluten-free place called JP's Pastries here in North Carolina. So it's gluten-free still. It's like a gluten-free cheesecake, for example. They got a little bit of sugar in there from honey or whatever, but it's still indulgence, but it's not as toxic as, what I used to eat from, any fast food place or Walmart. So that's what I tell people. I was like, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just drink water, eat real food, cut out the sugar, cut out the toxins, cut out the stress, and just move your body, exercise, whatever that looks like to you. Yoga, bike rides, the gym. I do a mix of everything.
Brilliant. I want to ask you, as we transition to kind of practical things that people can apply, what are some of your superhuman hacks as an athlete? What are some of the things you do to perform at your highest level?
So it all comes back to how to take care of my body and my mind. If you're stressed out, you're fearful, things like that, you're not going to perform well. And you can try and train as hard as you can around it, but you're not going to be able to. It's going to catch up to you eventually. And the internal war you're going to have with inflammation and cortisol is just going to, make your goals that much harder or not, possible because you're destroying yourself. Then also, training, learning how to not overtrain, but just, train right and get your recovery, get your rest. Diet, eat real food, don't eat crap, don't eat toxic food, don't drink alcohol. I mean, I've never smoked cigarettes in my life, but don't do that either. Stay away from that. And then just have a plan, have a goal. What are you trying to accomplish? I learned a couple of years of being a professional that I didn't have a goal. My goal was just to compete, but it wasn't very deep. It was just, I want to be a professional BMX athlete, but I didn't have a goal within that. So it's just I was aimlessly riding, wasn't training back then. I wasn't eating healthy. I just was doing my thing. But now having clarity on what my life, what I want to look like helps me be a better athlete. And with all these changes with my mind, my fitness, and my food, I've performed so much better and I don't get sore. And if I do, it's not like the soreness I used to get. It's just oh, okay, I, stressed up the muscles today. That's good. That's what we're looking for. But it's not like I can't go do it again tomorrow, And if it gets to that point, I learn to rest. So I think just taking care of your body and mind and just having that clarity of what you want your life to look like helps you perform in all aspects of life, whether it's a parent, a job, an athlete, whatever.
Brilliant. I want to ask you also if you have any homework assignments, any kind of activities that people can do this week, either to conquer fear or to look at their nutrition or anything like that.
Yeah, so there's a few things that, you can do easily every day starting now. And, we can start with the mind, every day, wake up and take 5 to 10 minutes to just close your eyes, put some headphones in with some instrumental music or whatever you got to do, but just visualize what you want in life. If you're not there yet, just, start with, writing a gratitude journal. Just write down some things you're grateful for and then write down some goals. But it really doesn't take much time to take 5 to 10 minutes right first thing in the morning before suggestions of life get into your brain to think about what you want your life to look like, what you're trying to accomplish. But more importantly, visualize it, feel it. That's the first thing to accomplishing them is to, visualize what you want and then go take action on it. And then with, nutrition, one thing I will do with my clients, the first thing I do before we get into anything is track what you're doing, log it, write it down, journal it, however you got to do it, write down whatever you consume throughout the day, good or bad, doesn't matter. Just write it down and how it made you feel after. And if you want, how did you feel before it that, and then you can make the connections. But what I find is people don't really know what they're doing because they forget about it. And then they're like, oh, wow, I ate so much of that today, or I didn't eat enough of that today, or I'm drinking alcohol multiple times a week. I didn't even think about it. It's like having that clarity comes from the data. So I'm all about data. So, write down what you eat for a week and just look at it. Look at what changes you can make. The most simple things you can do is don't drink anything but water as you begin, and then you learn, and eat real food, cut out the crap. And then the third part is just go move your body. Find something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be lifting weights every day. I mean, I definitely, believe that resistance training and endurance training, definitely you can't go wrong with that as in terms of health benefits. But, go do yoga, go do hikes, go do road bike rides, BMX rides, go play pickup games. So move your body. Those are too easy.
Brilliant. So, Josh, I want to give you the opportunity to tell people where they can learn more. I know that you have a blog and I know you're doing a bunch of different stuff. So where can people reach out and learn more about all the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so I do a lot, man. My blog, we'll start there, dailybrainstorms.com. And I share anything and everything that comes to mind. Some weeks I go every day posting. Some days I go once a week. There's already so much on there that I share. So my blog, and then all my social media. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, like everything. It's just, even my website is just Josh Perry BMX. I keep it simple, very engaging. I interact with everyone that I can as soon as I can. So that's a great place. And then as far as the work I'm doing with the Athlete Recovery Fund and starting my own foundation, that's athleterecoveryfund.org/Josh, and then Perry. And, I put a little video together about what we're doing and more importantly, why we're doing it. And, like I said, I'm very active and responsive on all my social media.
Brilliant. Josh, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing your story and really getting personal with me. Before I do that, though, I want to ask you, what's the number one takeaway for you from our conversation?
I just, I feel like it's always the same for me. Like, I want people to understand that their life is in their hands to a very majority of a degree. Like, anything you wanted to do in life, just have an open mind, believe in yourself, and then you can do it. And then, connecting with people like yourself that are like-minded, it just proves that more, and it shares the love more. So I don't know if that's really a takeaway, but that's just what I get like uplifted from all these conversations with like-minded people. It's just positive, inspiring, and, hopefully helps some people out.
Couldn't agree with you more, man. I want to thank you again. It's been such a pleasure chatting. I do hope we keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me and allowing me to share. And we'll keep in touch for sure.
Pleasure was all mine. Take care, man.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right. That is all that we have for you guys today. I want to give a very special thank you to this episode's sponsor, Health IQ, the health insurance company that helps health conscious people save on their life insurance using science and data to assess the fact that health conscious people have lower risk and therefore should get lower rates. Remember, guys, to see if you qualify, go ahead and get your free quote today at healthiq.com/superhuman or mention the promo code superhuman when you talk to a Health IQ agent. I also want to remind you guys that if you were inspired by this episode, if you've been inspired by the idea of learning faster and remembering more and accelerating your capacity to learn, then I strongly encourage you guys join me for a completely free 1-hour training seminar where we will go into speed reading and memory techniques that will allow you to do all of the above. To check that out, simply visit jle.vi/webinar. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.